They thought she was just another teenage girl loitering in the lobby. They didn't know she owned the building they worked in. And when they kicked her out in front of everyone, she didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. But 9 minutes later, their entire world flipped upside down. Because when a 19-year-old CEO fires an entire hotel staff, you know they crossed the wrong line. Stay with me. This story will change the way you see respect, leadership, and quiet power. Monica Ellison was only 19 years old when she walked into her downtown Chicago hotel one crisp autumn morning. She wore a simple black hoodie, gray sweatpants, and carried a scuffed blue backpack slung over her shoulder. No luxury handbag, no tailored suit, no entourage trailing behind her. Just Monica, the same way she'd walked into classrooms and basketball practices all her life. She'd started her hospitality company at 17, investing the money she'd saved from coding freelance websites, building social media brands, and flipping niche domain names online. Her hustle was quiet. Her wins were silent. And her dreams were too big to shout about until they were real. But that morning, she had come to inspect a renovation on the hotel's East Wing suites. She stood by the marble reception counter, waiting patiently for the general manager, scrolling through emails about new eco-friendly linen suppliers and confirming meetings with interior designers. That's when a front desk clerk, mid-30s, stiff uniform, tight smile, leaned over. "Excuse me," he said sharply. "Are you a guest here?" Monica looked up, blinked softly, and replied, "Not today. Then I'll have to ask you to leave." "You can't just hang out here." She paused. "I'm waiting for Miss." I said, "You need to leave." Heads turned. Guests shifted uncomfortably in line. Another staff member stepped forward, gently taking her elbow. "You can wait outside." Monica didn't argue. She didn't mention her name. She didn't flash her phone to show the hotel ownership certificates she kept bookmarked in her cloud. Instead, she calmly stepped outside and sat on a stone bench facing the fountain. 9 minutes later, a matte black BMW pulled up to the entrance. Out stepped her operations director, her lawyer, and 2 senior advisors. Monica stood, greeted them with a nod, and together they walked back through the glass doors into the lobby. The staff's faces shifted from mild annoyance to confusion, then to horror. Because this time, Monica didn't speak softly. She called the entire team to the conference room, and in a voice calm and unwavering. She spoke. "This morning, I was removed from my own hotel. Not because I was causing trouble, not because I was breaking the law, but because I didn't look like someone who belonged. I built this place from scratch. I pay the bills that keep these lights on. I am your boss. But you showed me today that you don't share the values this company stands for." She turned to her lawyer and handed him a folder. Inside were termination documents. The general manager, the front desk clerk, the staff member who grabbed her arm, all dismissed on the spot. No theatrics, no anger, just decisive action. Monica didn't do it out of revenge. She did it because her vision for hospitality was built on dignity, inclusion, and respect for every single human being who walked through those doors. As she walked back out into the golden Chicago morning, guests watched in stunned silence. She felt no pride in firing people, but she felt peace in standing up for the very values that built her success. Because true leadership isn't about power or ego, it's about protecting the dignity of every person, even when it's your own. As Monica stepped into her car that morning, her hands trembled just slightly. Not out of fear, nor out of regret, but from the sheer weight of the moment. She glanced down at her phone, scrolling through old photos of the hotel construction. Images of half-built hallways, empty rooms filled with dust, paint cans lining the marble floors, and her own handwriting on taped-up sketches of her vision. She remembered every sleepless night coding websites for small businesses to save her first $10,000. She remembered when banks laughed at her loan applications because she was too young to understand real business risk. She remembered when investors said, "You're smart, but who's going to take a teen CEO seriously in hospitality?" But she didn't need them to take her seriously. She needed to take herself seriously. And she did. Every day in her private office on the top floor, Monica sat by the window overlooking the city skyline. The sun cut through the clouds in pale golden beams, streaking across her minimalist desk. She sipped hot green tea and exhaled slowly, processing. The morning's confrontation. Her phone buzzed with notifications. The hotel cameras had captured the moment she was escorted out, and within hours, the clip had gone viral. Comments poured in. "This is why you never judge a book by its cover." She handled that with such grace. I would have lost my mind. Respect to her. Quiet power is the strongest power. Later that afternoon, Monica gathered her remaining team. Housekeepers, kitchen staff, valet drivers, maintenance crew. Everyone sat in rows of folding chairs facing her. She stood in simple black jeans and a white cotton tee. No designer logos, no corporate badge. Just Monica, the woman they had always seen walking the halls, greeting each of them by name, asking about their children's exams, their parents' health, their long bus rides home. She spoke gently. "I know what happened this morning hurt many of you, not just me. Because when someone is disrespected for how they look, it tells everyone else here they could be next. And that is not who we are. This place isn't just a hotel. It's a vision. A vision that every guest feels safe. Every employee feels respected. And every soul that enters these doors leaves lighter than they came in." There was silence in the room. Some staff wiped tears. Others nodded solemnly. They knew her words were not empty branding slogans. They were her life's truth. She continued, "I am young. And many people see that as weakness. But I promise you, it is my strength. Because I remember what it's like to have no power, to be dismissed, to be told I'm not enough. And I will never let this hotel become a place that makes anyone feel that way." She paused, letting her words sink deep into every heart in that room. "Today, we start again. Together." Monica then announced 2 major initiatives: mandatory respect and inclusion training for all employees, partnered with a leading equity consulting firm, the Quiet Power Scholarship Program, funded by her personal profits, offering tuition support to employees' children pursuing hospitality, business, and social impact. Degrees. The room erupted in applause. Some staff stood to clap. Others walked up to her afterwards, thanking her for giving them not just a job, but dignity and hope. That evening, as Monica watched the sun set over the city skyline, her phone buzzed with a text from her mother. "I saw what happened today. I'm proud of you. Grandma would be too." Monica closed her eyes. She saw her grandmother's wrinkled hands shelling peas on the wooden porch. Her quiet faith, her whispered prayers over Monica's sleeping form each night. Her grandmother never had the chance to lead hundreds. But she had taught Monica the most important lesson: you don't need to be loud to be powerful. Your silence, your grace, and your truth will shake the world louder than any scream. And that's exactly what Monica Ellison did. At just 19 years old, she shook the world. Not with shouting, nor with revenge, but with the calm, unstoppable force of knowing exactly who she was. Because true leadership is not about fear. It is about respect. It is about dignity. It is about lifting others, even when the world tries to pull you down. That night, Monica stayed late in her office. The hotel was quiet, its hallways glowing with dim gold sconces, the marble floors reflecting the silent lights of the city outside. She opened her laptop, reviewing the security footage once more. Not out of bitterness, but as a lesson. She watched herself being escorted out her small frame in a dark hoodie, backpack slipping off one shoulder, her expression calm yet distant. She paused the video at that frame. In that single still image, she saw everything the world assumed about her, and everything it didn't see. They saw a girl. They saw someone young. Someone unimportant. They didn't see the 3 a.m. coding sessions. They didn't see the days she went without food to save money for her first down payment. They didn't see the tears she shed when contractors laughed at her designs. They didn't see the prayers whispered every dawn when doubt strangled her. Chest, they didn't see her. Not really. She closed her laptop, leaned back in her chair, and let her eyes drift to the ceiling. In the quiet, she spoke softly to herself. I belong here, not because of what I own, but because I built it with love, respect, and purpose. Outside, the city lights twinkled like silent witnesses to her journey. Monica remembered her very first hotel guest, an elderly woman visiting her granddaughter's graduation. The woman couldn't afford a 5-star hotel, but was stunned by how Monica's team treated her like family. Helping her with luggage, offering free tea every morning, leaving handwritten notes wishing her a safe journey home. That was why Monica built this place. Not for the money, not for the prestige, but because everyone deserved to feel respected. Everyone deserved dignity. The next morning, Monica woke up before dawn. She laced her running shoes and jogged through the awakening city streets, breathing in the crisp morning air. As she ran past the hotel, she looked up at its glowing sign and smiled. She knew this was only the beginning. Her company was already planning to more hotels in Atlanta and Dallas. She was finalizing a deal with a global investor who believed in her vision of dignity-based hospitality. And she was scheduled to speak at an international women's leadership conference next month, the youngest speaker in the event's history. But none of that mattered as much as the handwritten note she left at reception that morning for her staff. To my team, thank you for showing up every day. Thank you for your hearts, your hands, your kindness. Remember, titles don't define us. Our respect for each other does. Let's build something beautiful together. Monica, she placed the note gently under the clear acrylic stand by the check-in counter. Then she walked out, hoodie on, backpack slung over her shoulder, disappearing into the morning crowd. Because true leaders don't need to announce themselves, they just lead. Quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. A week later, Monica found herself standing in front of a classroom of QMOA. My movie, so standing in front of a classroom of high school seniors. She'd been invited to speak about entrepreneurship, leadership, and overcoming barriers. As she looked out at the sea of young faces, some eager, some sleepy, some silently skeptical, she remembered being just like them not so long ago. She began with no PowerPoint, no script, just her story. I want to tell you something that took me 19 years to learn, she said softly, letting her words sink in. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what you look like, where you come from, or how many times you've been told no. What matters is whether you're willing to build something even when no one believes in you, and whether you're strong enough to stay kind when you finally succeed. She paused, scanning their eyes. A girl in the front row raised her hand. Didn't it feel good to fire them all? Like, didn't you feel powerful? Monica smiled. Faintly. She thought back to that moment, the papers handed over, the stunned silence, the tears, the fear, the relief. No, she said quietly. It didn't feel good. It felt necessary. Leadership isn't about feeling powerful over people. It's about protecting the purpose you build. I didn't fire them because I was angry. I fired them because I had a duty to protect my guests, my staff, and the dignity this hotel stands for. If you build something that matters, you have to guard it. even when it hurts. The room was silent. Even the sleepy students lifted their eyes, meeting hers with a quiet respect that words could never buy. After her talk, dozens lined up to shake her hand. Some asked for internships. Others simply whispered, "Thank you." One boy handed her a folded note before running out to catch his bus in the car ride home. Monica unfolded it. It read, "Thank you for showing me that I don't have to be loud to change the world." Her eyes watered as she folded it back into her wallet, placing it behind her credit cards and her hotel ownership IDs. To her, that note was worth more than any of them. That evening, she sat on her apartment balcony, legs curled under her, sipping hot chamomile tea as the city glowed beneath the descending twilight. She thought about her grandmother again, about all the women before her who had to keep their dreams small to survive. And she promised herself silently, "I will never shrink myself to make others comfortable, and I will never let my power become louder than my purpose." Somewhere below, city traffic honked and hummed, lights flickered in windows, and life went on. And Monica closed her eyes, feeling the evening breeze brush her cheeks like her grandmother's hands once did, because the world saw her as a teenage CEO. The hotel staff saw her as a young girl in a hoodie. The guests saw her as a calm leader. But Monica Ellison saw herself as exactly what she was, a builder of dignity, a protector of respect, a quiet storm that changes the world without ever needing to shout. A month later, Monica stood before the grand ballroom of her hotel, now fully renovated and glowing with warm amber chandeliers. She had organized a special dinner, not for investors, not for city officials, not for media, but for her staff. Housekeepers entered shyly in simple dresses and pressed shirts. Front desk clerks sat beside kitchen stewards. Maintenance crew came with oil-stained hands scrubbed clean. They had never been to an event like this in a ballroom so luxurious, with a dinner menu plated like royal banquets. At the front of the room stood Monica, wearing an elegant black suit. Her hair was pulled back into a sleek bun. No flashy jewelry, no stage lights, just her, glowing with quiet confidence. She stepped onto the small stage and spoke into the microphone, her voice gentle but clear. "Tonight is not about me. It's about you." She paused, letting their eyes settle on her, letting their hearts prepare to receive words they never expected to hear. "You are the heartbeat of this hotel. Without you, there is no warm welcome at reception, no fresh towels, folded with care, no sparkling floors, no steaming breakfast buffets, no flickering candlelights in the evening lounges. You are not just employees, you are the architects of every guest's memory." Her eyes glistened as she scanned the crowd, the single mothers working night shifts, the elderly maintenance man with arthritis in his knees, the teenage dishwashers saving for college tuition. She continued, "I was kicked out of this hotel because people judged what I looked like. And that day, I realized something powerful. If they could treat me, the owner, with disrespect because of assumptions, they could treat any of you the same way. And that is why I will spend my life building a culture of dignity here. Because you deserve to come to work every day knowing you are respected, valued, and protected." Tears fell freely in the crowd. Some hid their faces behind napkins. Others simply cried openly, feeling for the first time in their lives what it meant to be seen as more than just staff. Monica smiled through her own tears. "So tonight, eat well, dance if you want, rest if you need, but know this, you belong here. Not because of your title, but because of your heart. Thank you for building this dream with me." As the dinner continued, music rose softly, and people stood to dance. The laughter in that ballroom was gentle, deep, and healing. Monica walked table to table, shaking each person's hand, hugging some, thanking them individually for their dedication. Later that night, alone in her office, Monica opened her journal and wrote, "They say power is in money. They say power is in titles. But today I saw the greatest power, the power to lift others with words, the power to give people dignity, the power to make someone feel like they matter. That is the only power worth having." She closed her journal and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the sleeping city. Her reflection stood tall against the dark glass, not the reflection of a girl who was kicked out, but of a woman who owned her place in the world. She whispered softly into the quiet night, "I will never let them forget who I am. But more importantly, I will never let me forget who I am." The moon rose high above the skyline, casting silver light over her face. And in that silent glow, Monica Ellison felt no anger, no regret, no pride, only peace, because true leadership isn't about fighting to be seen. It's about seeing everyone else first. 6 months later, Monica walked through the bustling construction site of her newest project in Atlanta. The sounds of drills, hammers, and rumbling forklifts echoed around her. Dust swirled through the humid southern air, catching in her hair as she moved from room to room. Blueprint rolled under one arm, laptop bag slung across her shoulder. Miss Ellison, her project manager, called out, jogging over in a hard hat and safety vest. "We've got a structural issue on the west wing beams. Engineering is suggesting we cut down the rooftop garden plan." Monica stopped in her tracks. She turned, eyes fierce yet calm. "No," she said firmly, "that rooftop garden is non-negotiable. It's for our guests who can't afford ocean view suites, to give them somewhere peaceful to breathe." She crouched down on a stack of cement bags, pulled out her tablet, and began sketching new support configurations alongside her engineers. Within 20 minutes, she had redrawn the entire structural layout of the rooftop deck to maintain its integrity and beauty. The team watched in stunned silence. She didn't just direct, she understood. Every calculation, every design nuance, every human impact. Later that evening, Monica checked into a small boutique hotel nearby for the night. She wore a navy hoodie and black leggings, hair tied up in a messy bun. As she walked in, 2 elderly guests waited behind her in line. Monica turned, smiled softly, and offered them her spot. The older woman beamed at her. "Thank you, dear. Young people like you give me hope for the world." Monica chuckled lightly. "Thank you, ma'am. I think people like you paved the way for me to be here today." After settling into her room, she sat by the window overlooking Atlanta's neon-lit streets. Her phone buzzed with messages: investors, operations directors, global hotel partners. She scrolled through them quickly before opening her notes app and typing a simple line: "When I am old, I want to be remembered not for what I built, but for how I made people feel when they walked through my doors." She closed her eyes, hearing her grandmother's voice in her mind, the same words whispered to her every night as a child: "Be kind, baby girl. The world has enough rich people. What it needs is rich hearts." That night, Monica slept deeply for the first time in weeks. She dreamed of golden-lit lobbies filled with laughter, rooftop gardens blooming with jasmine and lavender, and handwritten welcome cards placed gently on pillows. Cards that said, "You belong here, always." 1 year later, Monica stood at the opening ceremony of her 4th hotel, this time in Dallas. The lobby was alive with warm wood tones, cascading greenery walls, and guests mingling under sculpted light installations inspired by southern magnolia blooms. Her team bustled around, ensuring every canapé tray remained full, every glass topped with sparkling cider and rose lemonade. As the final speeches ended, the guests began to disperse. Monica slipped away quietly, walking down the newly carpeted hallway lined with framed portraits. Each portrait showed not famous executives, nor architectural renderings, but her staff, housekeepers smiling in pressed uniforms, maintenance crew grinning beside toolkits, receptionists laughing mid-shift, chefs posing with fresh-baked breads. Under each photo was a plaque, the heart of this hotel. She ran her fingers gently across the frames, remembering each story. Rosa, the single mother who worked nights to save for nursing school. Samuel, the refugee who arrived with no English and became head of maintenance. Fatima, the front desk clerk, whose kindness once brought. A suicidal guest back from despair. At the end of the hallway stood an empty frame. A small plaque beneath it read, "Tomorrow's Story." Monica smiled softly. It was a tradition she started, leaving one frame empty in every hotel, reminding herself and her staff that there was always room for someone new, for a story unwritten, for a life ready to be changed by dignity and kindness. As she stood there, her phone buzzed. It was her mother, sending her an old photo. Monica, at age 8, sitting on her grandmother's lap, holding a ragged notebook, scribbling floor plans of hotels made of shoeboxes and cereal boxes stacked in the living room. Her mother's message read, "She'd be so proud of you, baby. But remember, your greatest building will always be your heart." Tears welled up in Monica's eyes. She whispered into the silent hallway, "Thank you, Grandma. Thank you for teaching me that real success is building a world where everyone feels they belong." That night, after all the guests had left, Monica walked back through the hotel alone. She turned off lights one by one, checked that every exit was secure, and left handwritten notes at the reception and staff break room. "Thank you for today. Rest well tonight. Tomorrow, we build again, with love, respect, and quiet power." Finally, she stepped out into the cool Dallas night, stars glimmering faintly above skyscraper shadows. She zipped up her gray hoodie, pulled her backpack onto her shoulders, and walked down the silent street. No driver, no paparazzi, no entourage. Just Monica Ellison, the teenage girl who was once kicked out of her own hotel. Now the woman quietly building an empire of dignity across the nation. And as the automatic glass doors closed behind her, the words engraved above them shone under the moonlight, "Welcome home." 5 years later, Monica Ellison sat in a boardroom overlooking Singapore's Marina Bay. The skyline glittered under a silver dawn, skyscrapers reflecting pink and gold streaks of the rising sun. Around her sat 12 of the most powerful investors. In Asian hospitality, men and women in tailored suits, their pens poised above branded notepads. She wore a simple white blouse tucked into black high-waist trousers, her hair in a neat braided bun. No jewelry except her grandmother's thin gold wedding band worn on her right hand, a quiet reminder of who she was and where she came from. An investor cleared his throat, scanning the summary of her pitch for a new hotel design. 0 plastic use, full community-based staff training, rooftop hydroponic farms for neighborhood. Food banks, open gallery lobbies featuring local artists. He looked up skeptically. "These are audacious concepts, Miss Ellison. They're noble, but will they be profitable?" Monica leaned forward, her calm gaze sweeping the room. She smiled softly before speaking. "Profit is easy. People are hard. Anyone can build walls and put beds inside. But building a place that changes lives, that creates loyalty beyond price. That creates meaning beyond sleep. That is what creates legacy. And legacy, gentlemen and ladies, is far more profitable than any overnight margin spike." Silence fell over the boardroom. Her words settled deep, cutting through the numbers on their spreadsheets into the hidden corners of their consciences. One by one, heads began to nod. Pens scribbled approval signatures onto contracts. When the meeting ended, Monica walked alone through the brightening streets of Singapore. Lanterns swung gently above hawker stalls opening for breakfast. The scent of kaya, toast, and brewed kopi wafted into the dawn air. She stopped at a small roadside table, ordered breakfast, and sat quietly among early morning market vendors and schoolchildren with backpacks. No one knew she was a multimillionaire CEO. No one knew she had just closed a deal to build the region's most socially impactful hotel. To them, she was just a young woman eating toast, sipping coffee, and watching the sun rise. And that was exactly how she liked it as she sat there. Monica pulled out her small leather notebook. Not the digital tablet, not the company laptop. Just her old worn journal with pages scribbled in fading black ink. She wrote, "True leadership is not how loudly the world hears your name. True leadership is how softly your work echoes through people's hearts long after you're gone." When she finished, she closed her notebook, paid the old auntie at the stall with a generous tip, and walked away, disappearing into the rising sunlit streets 10 years later. Monica Ellison stood on stage at the World Hospitality Leadership Summit in Geneva. Over 5,000 attendees, CEOs, architects, designers, investors, and students filled the grand auditorium. Cameras panned across her confident face as she adjusted the small lapel microphone clipped to her ivory suit jacket. Behind her glowed a giant screen with her keynote title, "The Future of Hospitality, Dignity as the New Luxury." She began without preamble, her voice low and grounded, cutting through the vast room with quiet power. "When I was 19, I was kicked out of my own hotel," she said. The audience shifted, listening intently. "I wasn't wearing a suit. I wasn't carrying a designer bag. I wasn't even holding my ownership documents. I was wearing a hoodie and sneakers. So they assumed I didn't belong." She paused, letting the silence deepen. "But I didn't fire them because I was angry. I fired them because they disrespected the purpose I built, a place where no human being would ever feel like they didn't belong." The screen behind her shifted, revealing images of her hotels worldwide. Rooftop urban gardens in New York feeding community shelters. Beachfront bamboo eco-suites in the Philippines, staffed by local women's cooperatives. Mountain wellness retreats in Kenya, funding girls' education programs. Capsule hostels in Mumbai, providing free overnight stays to migrant workers once a month. She turned back to the audience, her eyes fierce with unbreakable clarity. "I've spent the last 10 years building hotels that don't just house people, they honor them, because dignity is not an expense. It's the only true luxury that can't be bought, only given." She shared a final story before concluding. "Last month, I visited one of my first hotels. A guest recognized me in the elevator. She asked why I still wore hoodies instead of suits. I smiled and told her, because my grandmother taught me to never wear anything that makes me forget where I came from." The room erupted in applause. Some stood, tears in their eyes, knowing they had just witnessed a seismic shift in the philosophy of global hospitality. After the summit, as Monica sat alone in her quiet hotel suite overlooking Lake Geneva, she brewed herself jasmine tea, pulled out her worn journal, and wrote, 10 years ago, I thought success was being powerful enough to never be kicked out again. Today, I know success is building a world where no one else ever is." She closed her journal, set it on the side table, and gazed out at the twinkling lights across the lake. Somewhere, a violinist played softly on the promenade below, the notes floating up into her window like prayers, and for the first time in a long time, Monica Ellison felt complete peace. Because she knew she had fulfilled her grandmother's wish to build not just hotels, but homes for human dignity. 20 years later, Monica Ellison sat barefoot on the polished teak floors of a small, open-air temple retreat she had built on a remote Balinese hillside. The sun rose slowly beyond the misty jungle, golden light streaming through swaying coconut Palms, roosters crowing in distant villages below. She wore a simple cream linen robe. Her braided hair now showed threads of silver, but her eyes glowed with the same calm, unbreakable certainty they held when she was 19. Across from her sat a group of young women from around the world. Some were hospitality interns, others were social entrepreneurs, a few were survivors of trafficking she had sponsored into freedom and education. They had gathered for her annual silent leadership retreat, 3 days of quiet reflection, wisdom sharing, and reimagining what true power could become in their hands. One girl, barely 18, finally broke the silence with a trembling voice. "Miss Ellison, how did you find the strength to keep going when everyone doubted you? When you were kicked out of your own hotel, how did you not give up?" Monica smiled softly. The morning wind brushed loose strands of silver hair across her face as she spoke in a voice as gentle as dawn. "I didn't keep going because I was strong," she said. "I kept going because my grandmother's prayers were stronger then. My fear, because dignity is not something you fight for only for yourself. It's something you protect for everyone who comes after you." She paused, looking each young woman in the eyes. "That day when they kicked me out, I sat on a stone bench in front of my hotel and I cried, not because I was humiliated, but because I saw clearly what my life's purpose was: to build a world where no one ever feels unseen again." The girl's eyes welled with tears. Monica reached out, gently taking her hand. "Always remember," she whispered, "true power is not loud. It does not scream. True power is the quiet dignity of knowing exactly who you are and using your life to lift others into that same knowing." They sat together in silence as the sun rose higher, golden light flooding the temple floor, illuminating her face with a radiant peace. That evening, as Monica walked alone through the lush gardens of her retreat, she paused by a tall stone wall, engraved with the words she had lived by all her life: "When I am gone, let them forget my name, but never forget how I made them feel." She closed her eyes and breathed in the scent of blooming jasmine, feeling her grandmother's presence in the quiet breeze. Above her, the stars blinked awake, each one a silent reminder that light is never loud, but it is seen across galaxies. 30 years later, Monica Ellison sat in a wheelchair on the balcony of her coastal retirement home in Ghana, overlooking the roaring Atlantic waves as they crashed upon black volcanic rocks far below. The setting sun lit the ocean in molten gold, painting her serene face in amber hues. Her hair was fully silver now, tied in a simple knot at the nape of her neck. Thin, deep lines curved gracefully around her eyes, lines carved not by sorrow, but by decades of smiling, serving, and seeing beauty in hidden places. Beside her sat her granddaughter, 12-year-old Amina, legs swinging off the edge of the balcony bench, school tablet resting on her knees. She was researching Monica's life for a school assignment titled "The Person I Admire Most." "Grandma," Amina asked shyly, "when you were my age, did you ever think you'd own hundreds of hotels all over the world?" Monica chuckled softly, the sound like wind rustling dry palm leaves. "No, little moon," she said, reaching out to brush Amina's curls away from her eyes. "When I was your age, I just wanted to build a place where people felt safe. A place that smelled like jasmine tea and clean sheets, where everyone felt they belonged." Amina frowned, eyes thoughtful. "But didn't people treat you badly sometimes because you were young and black and a woman?" Monica gazed out at the crashing waves, feeling the cool sea breeze fill her lungs with salted air. She closed her eyes, remembering that day so long ago when she was kicked out of her own hotel lobby, the sting of humiliation, the echoing footsteps behind her, the cold bench outside where she sat waiting for her team to arrive. "Yes," she whispered. "They did, many times. But that's why I kept going." "Why?" Amina asked. voice trembling. "Wouldn't it have been easier to just leave?" Monica turned, her silver eyes glowing with fierce tenderness. "Because dignity. Little Moon is not just something you fight for yourself. You fight for it so that everyone who comes after you will never have to fight the same battles again." Amina blinked, tears filling her wide, dark eyes. She put down her tablet and hugged her grandmother tightly, burying her face against her shoulder. "I want to be just like you, Grandma," she whispered. Monica held her close, feeling her small heart beat bravely against her own fading one. She smiled, a single tear rolling down her wrinkled cheek into Amina's hair. "No," she said softly, "I want you to be better than me, braver than me, kinder than me. That is how my story will truly live on." As darkness fell and the ocean roared beneath the rising moon, Monica Ellison sat quietly, holding her granddaughter, her heart overflowing with peace. She had built more than hotels. She had built a world of dignity. And now she was building a legacy that would echo long after her body returned to the earth, because in the end, Monica knew, titles fade. Power ends. Money loses meaning. But dignity echoes through generations, lighting torches in souls not yet born. 50 years later, in a quiet sunrise ceremony atop a hill overlooking the sprawling city skyline she helped transform, hundreds gathered to dedicate the Monica Ellison Center for Dignity and Leadership. The new Global Institute would train young leaders in hospitality, social impact, entrepreneurship, and values-based innovation. Flags of dozens of nations fluttered gently. In the dawn breeze, rows of dignitaries, students, community leaders, hotel staff, and everyday people stood silently, each holding a white jasmine flower in tribute to the woman who built an empire rooted not in marble and gold, but in respect and kindness. At the front, her granddaughter Amina, now a respected global CEO herself, stood with tears streaming down her cheeks. She wore a simple cream suit and held Monica's old leather journal in her hands. She stepped to the podium and spoke in a steady, tearful voice. "My grandmother once wrote, 'When I am gone, let them forget my name, but never forget how I made them feel.'" She paused, her voice breaking. "But Grandma, today, we remember both." Behind her, a giant digital mural flickered to life on the Institute's outer wall. It showed Monica at 19, wearing her black hoodie and scuffed sneakers, sitting calmly on the stone bench outside her hotel, the moment she was kicked out of her own property. The mural then slowly transitioned into images of her decades of leadership, hugging housekeeping staff, planting rooftop gardens, signing paychecks with handwritten notes saying thank you for your dignity. Amina continued, "My grandmother didn't just build hotels. She built homes for dignity. She built businesses where janitors and CEOs ate at the same table. She built dreams that outlived their doubters. She taught us that the only power worth having is the power to make others feel seen." The audience stood silent, tears streaming down many faces. Birds soared across the golden sky as the first rays of sun illuminated the words engraved on the Institute's stone facade. "True power is quiet dignity. True legacy is love multiplied through others." Monica Ellison left the ceremony. Amina walked alone to the Institute's rooftop garden, a fragrant paradise of jasmine, lavender, lemongrass, and bougainvillea, alive with bees and morning light. She sat on a wooden bench engraved simply, with the words, "Welcome home." She opened Monica's leather journal, its pages yellowed with age, ink faded but powerful. She read silently, feeling her grandmother's presence in every line. "They can take your title. They can steal your seat. They can silence your voice. But they can never take away the dignity you give yourself and the dignity you build." For others, Amina closed the journal, placed it gently on her lap, and whispered into the rising breeze, "Thank you, Grandma. I promise. I will keep building your world." As the sun rose fully over the city, lighting towers, mosques, cathedrals, and humble homes alike, a quiet peace spread across the land. Monica Ellison's empire remained not of stone, but of souls awakened to kindness, not of money, but of lives transformed by dignity. Her name might fade in a century, but the world she built would echo through eternity, because true leadership is not remembered in headlines, it is remembered in hearts. In a bustling megacity of the future, visitors walked through the grand central plaza of the Global Museum of Human Legacy. Among towering holographic installations of presidents, inventors, and billionaires, there stood a simple exhibit with a worn leather journal sealed in crystal glass. Above it, an inscription glowed softly, "Monica Ellison 2006-2092. She built dignity into every brick she laid." A young student approached the exhibit with her teacher. She read the small plaque. Monica Ellison was kicked out of her own hotel at age 19 because staff thought she didn't belong. She went on to build a worldwide hospitality empire rooted in dignity, kindness, and inclusion. She left behind hundreds of hotels, thousands of leaders she mentored, and millions of lives touched by her quiet power. The student frowned. But why is she here with all these famous rulers and billionaires? She was just a hotel owner. The teacher smiled gently. Because, child, while others built monuments to their power, Monica built a world where everyone felt powerful. They stood in silence, reading her final journal entry displayed on a glowing page. "When I leave this world, I don't want people to remember my name. I want them to feel safe, seen, and respected wherever they go, and never even realize it was because of me." As the student walked away, the teacher whispered softly to herself, "True greatness is invisible, but its echo saves lives long after its voice is gone." If you take nothing else from her story, take this. While they're busy underestimating you, while they're busy judging you for how you look, your age, your clothes, your silence, be busy building a world that outlives them all, because in the end, power is temporary. Fame is forgotten, but dignity echoes forever.